Good morning, everybody, and thank you all for hopping on today and joining the conversation on the state of childcare here in Kansas. We're really glad that you guys made some time for this conversation today. And I'm sure, as you all are very well aware, childcare is one of those issues that doesn't just affect families and providers. It's really the whole community and employers as well. So today we're going to spend some time talking about what the childcare landscape in Kansas looks like right now, what's been changing with the child care tax credit, and ultimately how businesses can better fit into the solution. So before we jump in, I wanted to mention that today's webinar will be recorded and posted on our YouTube following this. So feel free to share that as well for those who could not make it. We'll be sending out the link this afternoon. And as we go through the webinar, feel free to throw in any questions in the chat, write them down, whatever works best for you. We will stop the recording right before the Q&A, so there will be a chance for open dialogue at the very end. So today we are very excited to be joined by two of our partners. First, we have Amanda from Childcare Aware. She is going to cover really set the stage for where we are in Kansas when it comes to childcare. What's the landscape? What are families and providers experiencing? And where support is needed. Then we're going to hop over. Brent from One Community is joining us today. He is going to talk specifically how businesses can use this childcare tax credit. So what it is, what it looks like, and then what is the opportunity for businesses to get involved and really be part of this solution. So our hope today during this conversation is that we provide you with practical and helpful tools to not only tell you, hey, here's the situation here in Kansas and what we're facing, but how can you all really engage and help be part of this solution. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Amanda, and we are going to run through a PowerPoint. And again, save questions for the end. We will definitely get to them. But with that, we are going to go ahead and get this kicked off.
All right, let's see. Just a second if I can share my screen here. And hopefully you all can see that.
Yes.
Okay.
That's good.
Perfect. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Amanda Poyser, Director of Family Connections and Community Impact at Childcare Aware of Kansas. And we are really excited to be partnering with Align and Brent at One Community to talk about childcare benefits and what that kind of means, as well as the state of childcare in Kansas and the resources that can be available to support this. The first thing I kind of want to talk about is what Childcare Aware of Kansas is and our partner agencies that are available throughout the state. We refer to ourselves as childcare resource and referral agencies, and there are 4 of us. We hold the state license for all of the licensed childcare programs throughout the state. And so we have access to their information. They work with us to provide current enrollments, and we are able to provide that to families that are looking for childcare. To put this in real life perspective, Brent just shared with me this week that he has been working with an employer that was implementing childcare benefits. They had an employee that could not find childcare. He was able to connect that employee to our resource and referral center, and they were able to get placement in childcare as soon as they wanted. And so it was a pretty cool opportunity, but we have 4 organizations throughout the state, ourselves, Childcare Aware of Kansas, Child Start, which is the red, I guess that's probably burgundy, highlighted with the number 2. And then the darker blue is our friends at Childcare Aware of Eastern Kansas, covering those 33 counties. And then Region 4, which is Futures First in Atchison, Leavenworth, and Wyandotte and Johnson counties. So all of us work together to help serve the providers, the families, and the communities in these spaces. And we not only work with the families, but the providers, like I've said, to provide training and technical assistance and communities and help them at that grassroots level, whether that's implementing and growing childcare capacity or supporting their providers in their areas. So talking about the landscape in Kansas today, We know there's a high demand for childcare. Families cannot afford to pay more, and childcare providers cannot afford to take less. There is a need for 78,000 slots in Kansas right now. Um, and that's based on our point in time data that is available on our Childcare Aware of Kansas website. Having that license gives us the opportunity to produce that point in time data, and it is updated consistently throughout those profile and vacancy updates that our team does with the providers to capture real-time information. We know that when families can't access childcare, it impacts the workforce. If they don't have a safe and reliable place to take their child, that may come down to their calling in sick to work or arriving late, shortening their shifts, those types of things. There are a lot of pressures on providers to increase their spaces, charge less, which they cannot afford to do either. And we are looking at what is available to them and connecting them with partnerships like employers that could help implement cost share benefits and what that could look like. We know that economic growth and really the economy as a whole depends on childcare and what that looks like. So Brent and myself are in a fortunate position to be implementing a solution, and we are, as a state, launching what is called Childcare Connect Works. And what this does is helps you all as employers attract and retain talent. We know that the return on investment is there up to 425%. And some of the studies that have been done for implementing childcare benefits. That helps increase productivity with your workforce and overall strengthen the community as a whole. When we offer childcare benefits and look at implementing a cost share or different solutions that are available, that puts money back into families' pockets that can be used on things like groceries or entertainment, gas, those types of things. And so we really want to work with employers with some of the tax credits that are available and help you implement a solution that fits for you all. I can also share at one of the last business summits we conducted in a smaller community, it was shared from an employer that one of their employees went back and counted all of the different family, friend, or neighbor care providers that they had for their child in a year. And there were 23 people that they had to come in contact with or ask to provide care for their child because they didn't have reliable childcare or couldn't afford it. And that story has kind of stuck with me as an early childhood educator in my past life, knowing that that's a critical time for a child and their brain development, and being able to have someone consistently in their life that supports them and helps them grow and to develop into a human that would be productive in society. So I think those are critical things to look at. So as I've talked about, we are launching Childcare Connect Works, and we are wanting to be really that one-stop shop, working together with Brent and our partners to identify your challenge as an employer, what that looks like, and then we'll work with you through assessments, whether that's you have no idea what you want to implement and what your options are. Um, or maybe you're ready to completely go on board and implement a cost share benefit. Um, we work with you step by step in this process and help you build that strategy that's going to work and then put that plan into action. So, at the end, there'll be a QR code for you to use. And like Claudia said, the webinar will be shared out. And I can drop the link to our website that also has a landing page for you to fill out information if you want to connect with us. But we would walk with you hand in hand through the process to establish what works for your business and what solutions are available to you. We're going to talk about our menu of options here. So it doesn't always have to be a cost share benefit that we look at. It could be partnership models, whether that's reserve slots that are being offered, priority enrollment placements. If you go into a partnership with a childcare program, you could also look at on-site childcare if that's something you're wanting to explore for your company, or consortium models where if you have another business that is struggling like you with this workforce issue, coming together and joining forces to share resources and pull together to open a program or partner with a childcare facility, those are all options that are available. And on my next slide, I'm going to pass it to my friend Brent.
Thank you, Amanda. And good morning, everyone. I am Brent Lewis. I'm Executive Director of One Community. We are a nonprofit provider of shared cost childcare benefits, and we are in partnership with Childcare of Kansas, utilizing the Childcare Connect Works platform to administer those benefits. And this is really an exciting time for employers and their employees and families in Kansas, because we're seeing just the stars align, if you will, for a real opportunity to address this issue on a widespread basis. And so I come to childcare after my wife and I had twins about 3 years ago, and we were both in executive positions, and we're stunned we could not find childcare arrangements. So we're one of those families. I resigned from my president position at my organization, and took a different role with more flexibility but half the pay. And I was losing more sleep than just having the twins at night about this problem. And so really One Community was born from the intent to solve the business problem. And that's how in this partnership we come to the table, is how do we address really the shortage of revenue, as you'd mentioned, for providers, but then also tackle affordability for families. And so we're really working to be right at that nexus of the problem by facilitating a cost share. Now we bring on that private investment that allows increased revenue to providers while still working on cost and improving affordability for families. So that's kind of the background and how we come to this point. Really, is we're gonna go to the tax credits here in just a moment. But what's happened is just generally the ask of an employer to provide support for childcare for employees involved support of a facility, either directly operating, managing, these kind of arrangements. And just frankly, employers often didn't want to tackle that. And so we just saw that there was an opportunity, but it was vastly underutilized. And so what we're just starting to see is recognition in the marketplace with like a One Community and shared cost childcare benefits. Now Childcare Connect Works entering to create just financial supports for employees to go into the marketplace on their own and seek care, just like we're kind of familiar with health insurance. We know that, I have this level of support and now I can go seek the provider of my choice. Well, now we can do the same thing in the childcare industry. And that's really changing the game completely. And so we start to see financial support options that we're familiar with, dependent care FSA contributions. Employees can put their own money aside to uh, fund care, but tax advantaged by doing that pre-tax. They're generally underutilized, but that was a good start. That's how we start to address this issue and make opportunities available. Then we start to see stipends and backup care stipends enter the marketplace. And these allow for employers to have that support for employees in place if an employee's primary provider is unavailable due to the typical reasons we would run into, then we can seek backup care and have that funding available to take care of that short-term need. And when we start to get into the cost share side of things, where we've built a shared cost childcare benefit program, we're really seeing that there's a need for an easy button, right? For employers, for employees, and for providers, all of our stakeholders. It just needs to be really simple and easy to implement. And so really what you see is just how do we allow an employer to make that investment and then hand it off and say one community through Childcare Connect Works, I'm sorry, can just handle the implementation. And for that employee, it's the same thing. It's I have access to this new benefit. This is wonderful. I now can choose the licensed provider that fits our family's needs. We can be close to home or work. We can be in home or we can be with the center. And we now have this support. And the Census Bureau, U.S. Census Bureau finds that more than 1 in 3 working parents with kids 5 and under have no child care arrangement at all. And as we've done this work, understanding the marketplace, really at the root of that is, if you go into that middle market or, you look at working families, they're just priced out of the market altogether. And so many have just stopped even looking or shopping, if you will, for care. And so what we can do is we can bring those families back in to the licensed care market and say, now you can afford to access this quality care that's so crucial for that child's development. And now you can afford it. This is really kind of an instant economic mobility mechanism here. So it's really exciting. Employees can just sign up and they choose their provider, and that's all that's asked of them. Now, what does that mean to the provider? It really just means that now they have an opportunity to stabilize their enrollment and increase their enrollment as more parents are able to access the market. Then they can start to fill those slots. Because it's interesting how if you go to the high end of the market, your premium providers, they have wait lists for years. But if you start to go down market into that, middle level and, start to push your way down through the market, we all of a sudden find closed down classrooms and really providers saying, we just wish we could see more families could afford, to seek out quality care. And that's what we're doing. Now, when the tax credits come into play, if you want to advance that, Amanda, what's happened is both federal and state governments have recognized what the marketplace has also recognized, that we just need to move beyond direct investment into facilities. And so we see the federal and state tax credits just within the last year, both have modernized and really become much stronger supports for employers who want to make that investment. And so we'll start in Kansas. This is the most recent development. Just in the last couple of months, we saw that our state child care tax credit has become much simpler, but then at the same time, much stronger. And so that's really exciting. I want to focus on the right side, the after Senate Bill 82, because that's really where we're seeing we move forward starting in January. 75% credit rate for qualified employer care expenses. This is really fantastic because one thing with employers, there's an opportunity to utilize credits. It's much more powerful than a deduction. And a lot of employers are familiar with, here are some of the common deductions that we can utilize, in the run of our business. But your small to mid-sized employers may not have as much experience with these tax credits. And just to give you a simple idea of why the credit is so much more powerful is, let's say we were looking at a $20,000 deduction versus a $20,000 credit. Well, if we had, say an employer was going to have a tax liability of $100,000, say, and they receive this deduction, it may reduce their their taxes from say $20,000 to like 16,000. That that makes an absolute difference for a business, and deductions are crucial. But if you take that same $100,000 taxable income and that $20,000 tax bill and apply a $20,000 tax credit, we've now eliminated that tax liability dollar for dollar with the credit. And so making this credit available to employers small to enterprise is really a game changer. And really, with 2/3 of Kansans working for small to mid-sized businesses, it's absolutely crucial now that we have wide access to the power of these credits. And what's happening here is it's pretty straightforward. If an employer is supporting childcare for employees, you have your 75% rate, and it's capped at 100,000 per year. So just to give you an idea of what that does, through a shared cost childcare benefit, you could see 1 to 2 dozen kids within an employer's program, and they may be able to utilize that full tax credit if they had that tax liability. And the way those tax credits work is that employer does have to have that liability to utilize the tax credit. It's not refundable. Like, you can't just get money back that you weren't going to pay in this way. And so that's really incredible, because you think about per 100 employees, you're probably looking at between 5 to 12 kids who will be 5 and under for that population. So this can really allow small to mid-sized employers to really offer a tremendous benefit, but then receive this incredible tax credit advantage as well. The tax credit has also created an opportunity for employers to make an investment with local child care providers to expand community access to care. And this is the new addition. There's going to be some work to make sure that we have clarity on this, but it just very simply, within proximity of that employer and their locations, they have now an opportunity to support the provider for supplies, equipment, training for their employees, these kinds of things, and utilize the same 75% credit rate if it's a DCF subsidized. Sorry, if that provider is willing to accept DCF subsidy, 50% if not. And Amanda, if you want to advance to the federal. Now, the federal government led the way last year, making these changes. And crucially, they have really opened the door wide open to go beyond direct investment into childcare facilities. And so what you see is a 40% tax credit for large businesses. And a large business, by IRS definition, would be over 32 million of annual gross receipts. Below that, you would be a small business for the IRS. And if you are that small business, that tax credit rate goes up to 50%, which is incredibly powerful. And if you look at those caps on that credit per year, for those large employers, it goes up to $500,000 of credit per year. And for a small employer, up to $600,000 for those small businesses. Now, they're generally not going to get there, of course, but what that is doing is opening the door for collaborations of small employers to make investments in facilities. And that's why their cap is larger, to open that window of opportunity for them. Now, importantly, the changed federal tax credit allows employers to make the investment in childcare support for their employees through intermediaries like One Community and Childcare Connect Works. And so what that's allowing then is for that employer to have that easy button option to say, we just want to make the investment and let someone else handle it. Well, what we do then is contract with those licensed providers, and that's qualifying that employer for the tax credit. Now, if an employer is just saying, well, here's so much here's so many dollars a month to our employees, and they just go with it into the community like a general stipend. That's not going to qualify that employer for the tax credit. It is the documentation of support directly to licensed providers and through the intermediary that's going to qualify that employer. So really, this intermediary change is crucial to participation because now an intermediary can make that stipend or shared cost childcare benefit work for that employer that's qualifying for the tax credit. Now, if you're not familiar with these tax credits, there is what we call carry forward. And what that means is, like I'd mentioned with the state credit, you're not allowed to like receive a refund. You can't get back more than you were going to have to pay in for that tax year. And so both federal and state allow for carry forward of underutilized tax credit. So let's say we had that $20,000 tax credit, but we only had a $15,000 tax bill, if you will, then we could carry that $5,000 forward into the next tax year. And so for cyclical businesses or growing businesses, this can be really useful for them. But what happens is at the state level, that unused tax credit can be carried forward for 3 years. With the federal credit, it's 20 years, along with other general business credits. So they really allow employers to manage their tax liabilities over a long period of time, especially with the federal. I think it's important to note that if we have resource and referral expenses that are not direct support for the cost of care for the children of employees, there is still the opportunity to utilize a 10% tax credit in those instances. So really now employers across the state of Kansas who think we want to make an investment to support our employees. We want to, frankly, it's in our self-interest to stabilize our workforce, right? And we can use this benefit or this investment to recruit and retain employees, as Amanda had mentioned before. Now we just see that there are just many ways that they can get the return on that investment. And the tax credits are powerful. And they're driving interest right now. But I have to tell you, just the returns on retaining your employees, stopping those revolving door positions where you're just constantly training new people and having to find new employees, or filling those long vacancies that are just preventing the business from really reaching its potential. Oftentimes those returns are going to cover the cost of a program alone. And then we start to bring in the tax credit. Now this really powerful return driver, and we could see a lot of employers could say, hey, we see a positive return on this investment. Amanda, you want to go one more? And as Amanda had mentioned before, we are really proud to partner with Childcare of Kansas and their regional affiliates to come alongside the employer who says, we want to implement now. We think that the shared cost childcare benefit just makes a lot of sense to us. We want to get a stipend going to support but we want to ensure that it's going to qualify for the tax credit. We now have that availability to employers today, and really proud of that. And Amanda mentioned the QR code. I'll put it back to Amanda if you want to pick up there.
Sorry. Yes, thank you, Brent. As he mentioned, QR code is on the screen, so that will go directly to our business support page. You will be able to fill out information, and that will come to my inbox, and we'll work together to implement a solution that works for you all. I also see some of our community people on the screen. So if you would like to host a summit and pull employers together, this is also a place that you could do that and request that. And Brent and I would be happy to do that and pull employers together as well.